Hi, I'm Jen DeTracy, and this is episode number 2 of My Messy House, because MS is raw and real. And as you know, metaphorically, if you watched episode number 1, the concept of My Messy House is based on the messiness in our head, not in our house. Let's face it, okay, yes, living with MS, it is true, you can have a messy house. I know it happens, especially because I have heaps of fatigue day to day. Maybe you can relate to that. Write your comments below, like, share, and subscribe. And basically, My Messy House, this concept that I want to share with you, is about a random thought. It's something that I've pulled out in advance, but I haven't planned out so that it is real and raw, just like MS can be. And today I want to talk a little bit briefly about control. What we have control over in our life. You know, when we look back to the time where MS was not prevalent in your life, if you can even remember back to that. Often I'll see a lot of comments that people have about the sadness they have about who they used to be. And we can talk about grief another time. But one of the things there is, it's easy to reflect upon that later, right? In retrospect. The fact is that, you know, when MS comes to visit and shows up in our lives, then what happens is, I think I can say for myself that I feel I have less control of my life. But the fact is that when I look back, even though, you know, I was able to work 12 hours a day and push through things, and I can't do that anymore, that I always felt in some ways that I didn't have control in my life. So now it's just ramped up a bit bigger. And what I try and do around that is think about the areas in my life that I do have control over. Because I find that my mind gets very messy. That house up here gets very messy when I start to think about what I don't have control over. And that can bring me down, particularly around the fatigue in my case. As I mentioned in the last episode, you know, there's so many different, the spectrum around what we as individuals experience around MS varies depending on who you are and where you are on the spectrum of MS, whether you're a relapse remitting or somewhere between then and progressive, right? So, but no matter where you are in that, what I call the journey with MS in your life, there's going to be more that you may feel that you don't have control of. And so, yeah, I like to think about what I do have control of. I do have control of when I wake up, what I'm going to do first thing in the morning. I have control of that. I have control over what I'm going to eat and when I'm going to eat and what I have the capacity to do during my day. Some days my capacity is very, very small. Some days my capacity is a little bigger. Some days I push my capacity so that I can have the life that I want to have and know that the next day my capacity is going to be tiny. So, but we do have control over those things. And so even with the rawness and the realness of MS and the unpredictability that shows up in our lives on a day-to-day basis, there are certain things that we do have control over. I know because I accept the fact that I live with fatigue, that I am going to have times in the day that I'm going to hit a wall. And I know that, right? So maybe I don't have control over when that happens, but I do have control over managing that in my life in a way that makes it better for me. So in the comments below, I encourage you to write down something in your life that you have control over. And the more that we can reflect on that, the less messy our little house becomes. And there can be some relief from that. Now, it may not sound that way. You might be listening to me and go, you know, you're on crack, Jen. Well, no, I'm not on crack. I might be crazy sometimes. I might be raw and real. But I know for a fact that there are things in my life that I do have control over. And I encourage you to reflect on at least one thing, just one thing. Write that comment below if you feel inclined. Share these videos with someone that you think might be beneficial, or the podcast that I'll be pulling out the audio from. Subscribe so you can get these on a regular basis. And I'll see you soon for another random thought on my messy house, because MS is raw and real. I'm Jen DeTracy. Adios.